What is up, YouTube tool tubers of the world? My name is Brad. Welcome to the workbench. If you want to get into woodworking, if you want to start somewhere, I'm going to show you the absolute cheapest way to get started with minimal tools. You don't need a shop, and you can create pieces that are just as beautiful as this one here, or even get a little crazy. Had a lot of people visit my channel. They want to get into woodworking, but they don't have a space. I don't want to give any illusions here. My shop is just an 8x10 little add-on storage to a carport we have. If you want to get into woodworking, there is a niche somewhere in there that you can do it. And this, I think, is one of the best ways to start out. Because this is something you can do with just a couple sawhorses, a couple very cheap tools you can get at Harbor Freight, and all this is an electric die grinder and an angle grinder. And then you'll also need a couple discs. But the star of this show is definitely going to be these Kutzall Shaping discs. These were sent to me for review and for me to try out. As you can see, they sent me quite a little variety pack. They have burrs in all shapes and sizes for Dremels and die grinders, and also discs for your angle grinders. You can see they've been well used now, and their big claim to fame are these tungsten spikes. They are just gnarly. They will chew away wood like you wouldn't believe, and as you can see, they don't really clog up. I have not cleaned this. I haven't cleaned this one either. They clear themselves so well. They have different grits. This is like a medium. This one's more of a coarse. And then, to get into the fine detail areas, like right here, you have a variety of burrs. But to really show you how easy this is and how anybody can do it, let's just go back and show you where this piece started. Now, like I said in the beginning, anybody can do this with just a couple of sawhorses and what most people consider trash wood. And believe it or not, these are the two pieces I started with. But this piece right here is the one that is fully completed, so it's the one we're going to be talking most about. Now, the beautiful thing about power carving isn't only that you only have to buy a minimal amount of tools, it's that most of your wood is given to you. It's most of the rejects other people don't want, just like this one. But to start off, we got to get this bark off. And like most tasks in woodworking, there's multiple ways to do it. You could use a chisel like I started with. You can take the claw end of a hammer and just kind of chip away at it. A draw knife. Whatever way you feel works best for you and the piece of lumber you're working on. So you can see that this piece started out pretty rotty, pretty nasty looking. Most people wouldn't have given it the time of day, but that's the wood you're looking for, because this wood you can get for free. In fact, I got both of these pieces for free. I'm only showing this one right now because this one's not quite finished. This one just had a few more holes in it that I had a little bit more trouble with. But it's going to be a pretty spectacular piece when it's done. Pretty gnarly. Now once the bark is removed, we got to establish some sort of base for this platter. And I decided to do that with these spider sawzall blades. Now these were also sent to me for review, but I haven't quite made up my mind about them yet. So let's see them work. Now, if you don't have a Sawzall at home, don't let that discourage you. You could do this same exact task with a little $8 handsaw. It would just take you a little bit longer. Or you just choose a piece of wood that already has a fairly established base that you can level out with the shaping disc. You could really shape that whole thing down with some of these discs, or some of the more aggressive chainsaw discs that they have out there. But be very careful with those. They catch very easily. I don't even really like to use them. Each one of these shaping discs runs anywhere from $50 to $60. Different kind of burrs they have, and they have all kinds of shapes and sizes. They have the 1/8 inch for like a Dremel if you need to get in a really tight area, or they got the 1/4 inch shaft for a die grinder. They're going to run you anywhere from about $15 to $25. That's the great thing about these is once you get these, once they're in your arsenal, they're going to last for a long time. The one bad thing about these is also the great thing. They're tungsten carbide, super hard. But super hard also means super brittle. You brush this up against something metal, teeth are coming off. But if you can't afford one of those, and even I still use this, they sell this at Harbor Freight. It's a 24 grit. It also has carbide on it. This will take you a ton longer than using something like this. But I still have this to get off bark or really nasty wood or something that I don't want these good ones to hit. Now that we got our blanks cut out and cleaned up, it's time to start making decisions about what we want our blanks to look like. As you can see, I like to use a red lumber crayon to help me visualize where the bottom's going to be, the thickness of the rim, and also any key features that you may want to highlight or try to get rid of while you're cutting. This shaded in area here is what I've decided is going to be the bottom, so it's also the part that needs to be perfectly flat and level so there's no rocking when you go to set it on a table. So as I flip this piece over, you'll see that I've already marked out where the rim is going to be, and that's pretty easy to do with a piece like this because it is live edge or natural edge. For the most part, you're just following whatever shape the piece happens to be. Of course, you can change the edge profile if there's something you don't like about it. You just want a good idea of what goals you're trying to hit. So I like to start by getting the bottom of my piece nice, flat, level. That way when you do set it down, it's not going to rock. Now this shaping disc I just chose is perfect for that. It's got a slightly convex surface that allows you to control the tool a little easier, but it is generally flat, which is great for leveling off surfaces just like this. So there are several ways to go about doing this. You can use this disc to level off all your high spots and you'll end up with a nice flat surface. Or you can do like I did and bring out your router and a router sled to level off the bottom, which I'll show you in just a minute. But like I said, if this disc is all you have, you can definitely still get the job done with this alone. It'll just take a little bit more time and a little bit more finesse. So this is about as basic as a router sled gets. And all you do is shim the piece level and also the sled that the router is riding in. This allows the router to reference the sled, which is a known flat surface, and transfer that to the bottom of the platter. This technique requires more time to set up, but is much more precise. And as you can see, once you do get it set up, it's pretty much idiot proof. You just go back and forth taking nice small bites, and eventually you'll have a nice flat bottom. Now here comes the fun part. I grab the dish wheel, which has a much more rounded profile than the previous one, and I start to shape the outside of the platter. If you recall, the area I'm working on now used to come to a pretty sharp point, but now as you can see, as I shape it, it comes to a much more smooth transition to the bottom. With live edge, natural looking pieces like this, my goal is to not change too much about them, but just take away the harsh spots, but make sure it doesn't look like something totally man-made, if that kind of makes sense. You can also see how well this Kutzall disc is clearing away the material. One thing that really impressed me was neither of the discs ever got clogged up with wood or sawdust during the entire project. Now you may notice I switched to a larger angle grinder here, and that's not to say that the cheapy Harbor Freight one wouldn't have got the job done. Again, it would have just taken a lot longer. With this bigger grinder here, I was able to put more pressure down into the wood without having to worry about bogging down the motor. Because honestly, when it comes to the final shaping or the lighter work, I prefer the little $10 Drill Master grinder. Because it is lightweight and it's not that powerful, so it's very easy to control with one hand. So now that I'm happy with the outside shape of the platter, it's time to start hollowing out the inside. So this isn't rocket science. I'm just hogging out material and then trying to give the inside walls a nice pleasing slope. The real concern here is not taking out too much wood and busting through the bottom or the side wall of the platter. And to do this, I have to use a very sophisticated, precise measuring tool. It's called my fingers. And yes, while there may be some sarcasm in that statement, it's really true. There's no more precise tool you can get for measuring things than your very own hands. That's why if you go back and watch an old timer or a very experienced woodworker, you're always going to see they're touching their work. They're feeling the bumps, the ridges, the grooves that your eyes just can't see. So now we have a very basic idea of what these platters are going to look like. The walls are still on the thicker side because we still have to address all the cracks and all the wormholes we have. Like everything in woodworking, there are many ways to address problems like these and actually turn them into features. So I decided to fill it in with epoxy. Now that was for the larger holes. The smaller holes like this, all I used was this 2P10. The really cool thing about this kit is it is specially formulated to accept these powders, and with these powders you can pretty much make any color you want. Comes with some sticks to mix up your color, even little pads to mix it all on. It's very, very handy to have around for small cracks and holes that you don't want to wait for epoxy to set up. You can find this kit on Amazon or at fastcap.com, and I'll leave links for both down in the description. The bigger holes, you're definitely going to want to use some kind of epoxy to let it run down in there and fill up the entire void. As you can see, I wanted to play with a few different colors. The challenge with this part was patience. Since the large cracks and bug holes were all over the place, I would have to level off a section, wait for the epoxy to set, then reposition the piece to where another set of holes was again in the level position. It may have been better to try to fill some of the voids before actually shaping it, but that would require a lot more epoxy, which isn't cheap, and also many bug holes or other defects were not visible until I was shaping the bowl. You definitely want to use a good masking tape, or even duct tape will work in a pinch, to seal off the bottom side of any voids that go completely through. Be sure to take your time with this step, and I've also found that multiple small pieces of overlapping tape work better for contoured areas like this. But then you just come back again with your shaping disc, and you just start taking down the epoxy and putting the final shape on your platter, bowl, whatever you might be carving at the time. You can see that the epoxy will stay in the voids, all the low spots, but be taken off of the high spots of the wood. Now I did kind of speed through the final shaping of the bowl because that's just a lot of the same thing. It's all about hogging material at the beginning, and then once you get your epoxy in, you take the epoxy out. It's just about defining the final shape. Once you get done using these type of discs, you do have to sand. So another handy tool to have for this is just a cheapy little random orbital sander. You can pick these up for 20 bucks, 30 bucks. Do you have to have this? No. You can do the final sanding all by hand. Or you can do the final sanding for the little nooks and crannies with just your standard drill, cordless or corded. But again, these are not tools you have to have. These are tools that save you time. So I hope seeing something like this just basically encourages you to go out and try to do something the same way on your own. It's really fun. It's very relaxing. It's a cheap way to get into woodworking. You truly only need a minimal amount of tools. Some tasks may take you longer, but the end result will be the same. If you don't have the money, you just got to spend the extra time. If you've got the money to kind of do a few things that will help you save some time, hell yeah, spend that money. But it is not a necessity. This is probably going to be the most expensive thing. You buy them as you can. These are not one-time use products like some of the other discs that you put on a grinder. These will last you through many, many projects. I guess the biggest point of this video was I wanted you to see the Kutzall discs, what they can do, and show you that you don't need a ton of money. 100 bucks can get you into this craft, and no shop required is the biggest thing. In fact, you want to do this outside because it makes a complete mess. So until next time, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down there, and I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace! Am I a master at this craft? Hell no, not at all. I'm not a complete beginner. I've had my experiences, but I'm definitely still learning a ton as I go, and that's the beautiful thing about this craft is there's always another way, there's always something more to learn, and if you get bored with, let's say, the carving section, you can get into turning, you can get into flat work, furniture. I mean, there's a whole wide world of avenues you can explore. Everybody is responsible for their own personal safety. Use your head when you're using these tools.